My name is Emily. I'm 39, and I never imagined I'd be alone in this house. After Daniel died, the walls didn't feel like home anymore. They felt hollow, like the space between two people who stopped saying good morning. I'd always thought grief would come in storms, loud, thunderous, messy, but no one tells you it can be quiet, painfully, unforgivingly quiet. The house was too big for just me. Too many chairs, too many towels, too many memories folded into every drawer, every corner, every evening without his footsteps on the stairs. So I did something I thought I'd never do. I put up a listing. Furnished room for rent, second floor, quiet neighborhood. No picture of me, no mention of widowhood, just space for someone, anyone. He arrived 3 days later. His name was Liam, 24. An engineer, just moved to Boston. Polite, soft-spoken, the kind of guy who kept his eyes on the floor when talking to a woman older than him. He said he liked the view from the attic window, said it reminded him of his mom's kitchen back home in New Hampshire. He didn't smile much, and I didn't ask why, but I noticed. He carried just one duffel bag and a stack of worn paperback books, the kind that smelled like coffee and sad endings. He didn't ask about the neighborhood, or the heater that clicked at night, or the extra lock on the back door. He just said, "Is the room still available?" And I nodded. That was it. No hugs, no stories, no plans. Just two people agreeing to share silence under one roof. The first night, I heard the floor creak upstairs, and then music. Low, almost hesitant. A Nina Simone vinyl I had left in the record player in the guest room. I didn't mind. In fact, for the first time in weeks, the house didn't feel so painfully still. He didn't come down for dinner. I didn't make enough for two. But I left a cup of tea on the counter anyway, just in case. The next morning, the cup was rinsed and placed carefully back in the dish rack. No note, no words, just a gesture, and somehow that said more than any welcome ever could. The second week passed, without anything particularly memorable, and yet something was changing. We didn't speak, but somehow we were communicating. I'd leave a fresh mug of tea on the counter each night before bed, and every morning it would be clean, put back in place, not a word exchanged, not a single thank you, but I knew he had seen it, accepted it, and maybe appreciated it. One afternoon, I heard the front door click shut. When I stepped out, the draft stopper, one I had meant to fix for weeks, was nailed perfectly across the frame. Beside it, a small handwritten note in blocky, almost childlike print. "Wind's picking up. Thought this might help. L. Just that. Not Liam. Just L." I smiled for the first time in days. Not the kind of smile that stretches your cheeks, but the kind that tugs quietly at the corners of your mouth, like a whisper that says, "You're not invisible." He didn't ask questions, didn't pry, and I didn't explain why I kept a single pair of men's boots by the door, or why the left side of the bed in the master bedroom was still untouched. I think he noticed, but he never asked. And in return, I never questioned the way he sometimes sat out on the back steps alone, looking at the stars long after midnight, or the way he gently turned away every time someone on the radio mentioned the word mother. We were two ghosts haunting the same house, but instead of scaring each other away, we learned to leave the lights on for one another. There was a rhythm to it now. I cooked more often, not elaborate meals, just simple things: boiled eggs, soup, oatmeal with cinnamon. And I started wrapping up a second portion, labeling it extra and leaving it in the fridge. He never asked, but I always found the container rinsed and tucked away the next morning. And sometimes, when I'd come home after a long walk, the porch light, which flickered occasionally, would already be replaced. We never said, "Did you sleep well? How was your day? Are you okay?" But I started noticing two new books appear on the living room shelf, a set of headphones left near the armrest of the couch, a quiet nod to my late-night radio habit. It was as if we were building something, brick by quiet brick. Not a friendship, not a family, something in between. One night, I dropped a glass in the kitchen. It shattered. Liam rushed down, barefoot. I told him, "I'm fine, really." He didn't speak, just looked at me, then carefully stepped aside and handed me the broom. And as I swept up the pieces, he sat on the floor across from me, said nothing, but he stayed until I was done. That's when I realized sometimes comfort doesn't come from words. It comes from presence. It was supposed to be a simple favor. The upstairs bathroom faucet had started to leak, slow but steady, the kind of drip that gets into your dreams. Liam offered to fix it. He was good with tools, calm with his hands, said he needed a wrench from the utility cabinet, the one I kept in my bedroom closet. I told him, "The door's open. Grab whatever you need," and went outside to water the garden. When I came back, I saw the bathroom light was off, but Liam hadn't left yet. His shoes were still by the stairs. I found him sitting quietly at the edge of the living room couch. He looked different, not disturbed, but not at ease either. He stood when he saw me, held up the wrench. "All fixed," he said. I nodded, smiled, said thank you, and he left the room. But something lingered. That night, as I folded laundry, I noticed the drawer under my bed was slightly ajar. It wasn't like me to leave it open. Inside was a box I hadn't touched in over a year, a simple pale blue box. Inside it, a black lace slip still folded, a bottle of perfume I hadn't sprayed since Daniel's funeral, and an envelope, unopened, labeled in his handwriting, "For when you're ready." It wasn't about what Liam had seen. It was about what I hadn't wanted anyone to see. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, the box in my lap, not angry, not embarrassed, just human. I wondered what Liam had thought. Did he judge me? Pity me? But the next morning, nothing changed. He came downstairs as usual, set the tea kettle on the stove, said nothing. Not about the drawer, not about the box, not about me. He just asked, "Want me to fix that squeaky hinge on the back door?" And I exhaled, maybe for the first time in days. Sometimes the most profound act of respect is choosing not to name what you saw. It's letting a person keep their privacy even after you've glimpsed a page in their story they never meant for you to read. Later that week, I found something new taped to the fridge. It wasn't a note, it was a comic strip cut from the Sunday newspaper. Two penguins sitting side by side looking at the moon. One says, "You don't have to talk, just sit with me until the tide changes." I smiled, and taped my own sticky note next to it. "Tide's calmer today. Thank you." That's how we mended what could have broken. Not with apologies, not with confrontation, but with quiet understanding. The kind that says, "I saw your wounds, and I chose not to press my fingers into them." It had been nearly a month since Liam moved in. We had built something resembling comfort, a house that no longer echoed as loudly. But still, not a word had been exchanged that wasn't about a light bulb or a grocery run or something broken. Until that Thursday morning, I had come down early. Woke up with a pounding head and a throat like sandpaper. It was just a cold, nothing more. But the kind of cold that makes even the simplest task feel like climbing a hill. I made it to the kitchen and sat down in silence, wrapped in my old cardigan. Breathing slow, eyes closed. That's when I heard him. The sound of footsteps, a soft drawer being opened, and then the quiet clink of a spoon in a bowl. I didn't open my eyes, not even when the chair across from me creaked. Then his voice, clear, gentle, first time he said it out loud. "Emily, you okay?" Just that. My name, a question, a concern. Real, human, spoken out loud. I looked up, and for a second I almost cried. He had placed a bowl of oatmeal in front of me, steam still rising, just enough cinnamon to remind me someone had noticed the smallest thing. And then he reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a cold compress, wrapped in a towel, placed it on the table beside me without a word. I stared at it, at him, at the space between us, and I whispered back, "Thank you, Liam." Something in his shoulders dropped, not in defeat, but in release, like a door had quietly unlatched. We didn't say more, But the next morning, I found a box of ginger tea on the counter and a sticky note that read, "This one's less bitter than the last." I replied with one of my own, "So am I." We both laughed quietly at our own unspoken joke. That weekend, I was doing laundry in the hallway when I heard music playing faintly from upstairs. Old jazz, the kind Daniel used to hum on Sunday mornings. I paused, not because it hurt, but because it didn't. It didn't sting the way it used to. I wasn't sure if that meant I was healing or simply learning to carry the memory more gently. But I knew this, I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. That night, Liam knocked softly on my door. He didn't come in. Just said through the wood, "I fixed the squeaky hinge." And I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "I noticed," I replied. "Thank you." The rain came suddenly that night, fast, steady, and cold. It tapped on the roof like 1,000 quiet reminders that some things still move, even when we feel stuck. The power flickered once, then went out. I lit 2 candles and left one on the kitchen table, just in case Liam came downstairs. I wasn't hungry, I wasn't sleepy. I just sat there, watching the flame dance, listening to the hum of silence. And then I heard footsteps. He entered the kitchen with damp hair and no shoes. He looked at the candle, then at me. I gestured toward the chair across the table. He sat down. Still nothing was said. For minutes, maybe more, just the sound of rain on the windows and the soft flicker of wax melting. Then I whispered, "He used to read during storms." My voice surprised me. It had been so long since I'd spoken of Daniel aloud. He'd light candles like these, put on those ridiculous reading glasses that always slipped down his nose, and pretend the rain made him smarter. I laughed, soft, broken, but real. Liam didn't interrupt. "He wasn't perfect," I added. "He left his socks everywhere. He forgot anniversaries, but he always made sure my tea was ready before I even thought about needing it." I paused, then looked at him. When he died, I didn't cry at the hospital. I didn't cry at the funeral. But the day I threw out his half-used shampoo bottle, I choked. That's when I collapsed. Liam didn't reach for my hand, didn't offer a word, but his eyes, they were wide open, not in shock, but in understanding. Then he said quietly, "I lost my mom last year." His voice cracked. She used to hum when she cooked, even when she was angry. I hated it then. Now, I can't remember the tune. We both sat there, 2 shadows filled with echoes of people we could no longer touch. The rain kept falling. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was under it alone. When the power came back, we didn't flinch. The room filled with light again, but it didn't erase what had been said in the dark. That night, we didn't say goodbye. He stood, nodded once, and walked back upstairs. I stayed a little longer, watching the candle shrink into itself. Before I blew it out, I whispered, "Thank you for letting me remember." And in the silence that followed, I could almost hear someone, maybe him, maybe me, say, "You don't have to carry it all alone anymore." After the night of the rainstorm, something between us shifted, but not in the way most stories go. We didn't start having coffee together every morning. We didn't share playlists or go to the farmer's market. We didn't fall into each other's arms. No, what happened was quieter than that, and more powerful. Liam still fixed the squeaky drawer in the hallway. I still labeled his leftovers in the fridge. But now when our eyes met in passing, there was a pause, a softness. We had seen each other not in love, not in grief, but in truth. And that truth was enough. One evening, I was watering the lavender by the back porch. Liam came out, a cup of tea in each hand. He set one beside me, didn't say anything. We sat. The sun was setting, dipping below the fence line in soft strokes of orange and pink. After a long silence, I asked, "Are you thinking about leaving soon?" He didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead. Then he said, "I think I'm almost ready." And I nodded. A week later, I found a note on the fridge. His handwriting, neat and deliberate. "Thank you for not asking me to stay." I placed my hand over the paper and whispered, "Thank you for not needing me to." The next morning, he left early, no suitcase in the hallway, no sound of the front door closing, but I just knew, he was gone. I didn't cry. Instead, I made tea, 1 cup, turned on the radio, opened the curtains, and for the first time in a long time, the house didn't feel empty. It felt aired out, like a room that had been sealed too long, finally letting the breeze in. Weeks passed, then months. Seasons changed, and with them, so did I. I started hosting book club again, cooked dinner for myself, not just out of routine. I even laughed out loud at a movie one night and didn't feel guilty about it. Then one spring morning, a package arrived at my door. No name, no note. Inside was a small photo frame, repaired, and in it, a picture of a lavender sprig pressed between the pages of a worn paperback. I smiled, because I didn't need a return address. I already knew. People think goodbyes come with suitcases, tears at doorways, long hugs and missed calls. But sometimes, the most beautiful goodbye is the one you never say out loud. It's when someone walks out the door and you carry them not in grief but in growth. Liam wasn't my partner, wasn't my son, wasn't my friend in any traditional sense. He was just someone who came when everything was broken and helped me remember that I was still whole. We never promised to stay, but we showed each other how to leave, with peace. And that, in its own quiet way, was love.